Good morning, Canada. Good evening, Asia. It is Thursday, 11 a.m. here in Toronto, and today we're broadcasting our last webinar this year. My name is Alex Davidson, and today we'll talk about the first year of Express Entry era of Canadian immigration. We'll give you some basic figures and try to make cautious forecast for the nearest future. Also, we'll see how Express Entry affected provincial immigration and how programs of the provinces have changed to work with Express Entry efficiently. Now, let me briefly remind you what Express Entry is and why it was introduced a year ago in January of 2015. After 2002, when the current immigration law was adopted, the amount of immigration applications began to increase very quickly, simply because eligibility requirements were very affordable for people from pretty much all over the world. At the same time, Canada have been still accepting around 250,000 immigrants per year, and that amount has not been increased significantly over the last years. So naturally, this resulted in growing backlog of unprocessed immigration applications with no visible prospect of fixing the situation. Introducing mandatory IELTS test, increasing IELTS threshold, establishing list of eligible occupation, all of those did not really help. To address the issue, it was decided to switch to a completely new model of immigration that provided and actually proved its efficiency in other countries. That's how we got our own Express Entry. This is basically a large online database managed by CIC Citizenship and Immigration Canada, something like a website where anyone meeting very basic eligibility requirements can create an individual account for free. The system gathers and processes lots of information about each candidate, ranging from the date of birth and passport number to academic background and work experience. So this information is used by CIC to screen and select candidates from the Express Entry database, which is called the pool, and invite those applicants to immigrate to Canada. Selection process is based on the candidate's scores assigned by Express Entry, which accounts for their age, language ability, professional experience, and so on. Now, as I just said, basic Express Entry requirements allowing to create an account are very simple. First, a candidate must sit an IELTS English language test and receive at least 6.0 in each of the four modules: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. All of you know that IELTS 6 is not technical or rocket science. If you can understand me now, it usually means that you would be able to receive 6, though of course some preparation would be needed. Second requirement, a candidate must have his or her education assessed by an organization designated by CIC. So this process is established to make things clear when it comes to evaluating foreign educational credentials in the immigration process. Education systems, they vary from country to country, and since Express Entry is open to all the candidates worldwide, absolutely non-discriminatory, it's necessary to establish equivalency of candidates' education to Canadian standards. That is why educational credential assessment is required. And the last requirement is familiar for many potential candidates, for it has been in place for many years. The candidate for Express Entry must have at least 67 points on the Federal Skilled Worker Immigration Program scale. Any individual meeting these requirements can create an Express Entry account for his or her entire family for absolutely free and to be considered for immigration to Canada. Now, let's take a look at some figures and try to understand how Express Entry is performing. Of course, the statistical information always lags behind, and today, when Express Entry is about to turn 1 year, we only have figures for the end of August of 2015. So technically, this data is for the first 8 months of Express Entry operation. So here the numbers are. In the end of August, there were about 47,000 candidates in Express Entry pool. So that perception that there are millions and millions of applicants is false. Technically, right now, we have something close to 50,000 of applicants overall sitting in Express Entry pool. It means that these people have met the basic eligibility criteria I explained to you a couple minutes ago. By the end of August, CIC has selected candidates from Express Entry pool 15 times, and every certain time, candidates received invitation to apply for permanent residency in Canada. Overall, a total of about 19,000 of invitations have been issued by the reporting date. Each invitation is valid for the entire family, so in total, I would say about 50,000 people, including family members, were invited through the Express Entry system. However, of course, not all lucky candidates who drew their winning tickets were able to use them for whatever reason. With over 18,000 of invitations which were issued, only slightly above 11,000 complete immigration applications were received. Some applicants were still working on theirs at the end of August, whilst I would say others were unable to proceed for different reasons. They were not able to prove their claimed points, or they were not able to apply for technical issues, or they just did not want to immigrate. So is the new system really express? Now, by the end of August, over 3,000 visas were issued to successful candidates. It means that for those lucky ones, their immigration took not more than just 8 months, which is truly remarkable given that many applicants had to wait for up to 3 years before the Express Entry system was introduced. Plus, by the end of August, over 1,500 people of those who were admitted already arrived to Canada. We're coming to the most intriguing question. So how many points a candidate must have to be selected? While there's no one who could predict the future, of course, with confidence, we can nevertheless analyze the current trends and give you a rough estimate. So here's how Express Entry score was distributed amongst the candidates. You may notice one strange thing about the scoring. How is it possible that there are only two candidates whose score is between 600 and 699? It all becomes clear if you could recall that 600 points are awarded either for the job offer or for a provincial nomination. It means that these two candidates have either of those, and at the same time, they received very low points for everything else. So either their education level was low, or their age, or their language abilities. So now let's proceed to the most interesting part: distribution of scores below 500. As you can see, here's where the main competition actually takes place. Majority of candidates received 450 points and less. So having general understanding about the number of candidates accepted every month, number of invitations issued, and distribution of Express Entry score, we tried to use some smart math to make a rough estimate about how soon CIC may begin issuing invitations for applicants with 400 points and below. And this rough estimate, if you use the simple math, would tell you that this could happen as early as in April or May 2016, given of course that the current trends remain unchanged. Of course, it's just a prediction, but that's a reasonable one given that our country still continues to welcome thousands and thousands of applicants every year, and typically we accept anywhere between 2 and 300,000 of new Canadians annually. Let us now proceed to provincial immigration programs and see how they work together with Express Entry. This part of our webinar is especially important given that a provincial nomination would result in extra 600 points in Express Entry profile, making a candidate almost a sure winner in terms of immigration. So during the year of 2015, different models of coexistence of provincial programs and Express Entry system has evolved. The first model is quite simple. Having access to the Express Entry database, provincial immigration authorities simply cherry-pick the candidates they needed from Express Entry pool. While a good example of such approach is the Provincial Immigration Program of Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program, or also shortly called OINP. In 2015, thousands and thousands of Express Entry candidates received the so-called provincial or territorial interest letter in their Express Entry accounts, saying that the government of Ontario is interested in considering them for nomination under its provincial nominee program through Express Entry. This provincial invitation allows the lucky candidate to submit his or her application to the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program authorities, and of course hoping for the best. If this application is successful, the provincial nomination certificate would immediately add 600 in their Express Entry profile. For example, Ontario has been selecting applicants who have scored over 400 points in Express Entry ranking system, which still falls below the threshold of about 450 selection of federal authorities, right? But I mean, 400 is more or less attainable. Another example would be Saskatchewan program, which accepted applicants from Express Entry pool with certain occupations and desire to live in the province of Saskatchewan. This particular program has been especially successful and has been reopened a few times during this year. Now, model number 2 is an own Express Entry-like system. This model was adopted, for example, by the provinces of Manitoba and New Brunswick. They now have a so-called expression of interest system, which in essence mimics the Express Entry system to a certain extent. So the candidate must meet some basic provincial criteria to have the opportunity to submit an application to the provincial expression of interest pool. For instance, to attend the information session, to have a relative or a friend in the province, to be invited by an employer, or simply to be lucky enough to submit an expression of interest application when a province opens this opportunity to everyone for a quite limited time. Technical implementation of the system, of course, depends on the province. So while Manitoba PNP upgraded its existing online application system to accommodate expression of interest applicants, New Brunswick simply uses a paper form which is to be filled and submitted by candidates in hard copy. The rest of the process is pretty much straightforward. So provincial immigration authorities pick suitable candidates from all who submitted their expression of interest applications. And it's all based on some flexible criteria, depending on current labor market demands, right, of course. Selected candidates receive invitations to apply, just pretty much Express Entry, allowing them to submit an application to the provincial immigration authorities. Those whose applications are approved will receive provincial nomination certificates and will be able either to update their Express Entry accounts or create new ones. As usual, of course, the province of Quebec stands apart. Neither it officially has any Express Entry-like system, nor selects its candidates from the Global Express Entry pool. In other words, provincial immigration programs of Quebec, for now at least, they have nothing to do with Express Entry. It is expected that very soon Quebec will announce its own Express Entry-like system, which would allow candidates to apply with less effort. The date announced by Quebec is, as far as I could remember, 18th of January 2016. So at least for now, on January 18th, Quebec is planning to implement its own Express Entry-like system, which would accept candidates. Overall, that Quebec program should have similar requirements to Express Entry, but for lots of candidates, selection criteria would probably be less than the federal program. Even though the quota of Quebec is traditionally, of course, lower than the quota for federal Express Entry system, lots and lots of candidates would be able to find that this program might be more suitable for them. Let's now see what countries supply the majority of Express Entry candidates. Here's the statistics at the end of August 2015 for the top 10 countries. Of course, India is far above everybody else, and is followed by Philippines, China, Pakistan, Nigeria, Bangladesh, Great Britain and Ireland, and Egypt, following a little bit below. This is the number, how those 48,000 of applications were distributed by the countries. So overall, again, that perception that Express Entry system has millions of applications and that pool which was created is huge, technically it's not true. More or less, we're still talking about 50,000 of applications for a country of Canada accepting roughly about 250 or 300,000 of immigration applications every single year. And notwithstanding the fact that this year, when Express Entry was implemented, at the beginning especially, it has not always been working stable and predictable. It's still a great tool for many applicants, allowing you to transparently see your scores and improve them to attain the desired score. First and foremost, through participation in a provincial program selection. So get an additional 600 points. It is not as difficult as it may seem, given that your application is in the right place and of course is at the right time. Here's the range of programs which are open this year and which you could still employ from the beginning of the next year if prepared and planned accordingly. If you ask me personally, that looks pretty impressive. We have pretty much all of the provinces here, from Ontario with its surprisingly interesting and surprisingly non-discriminatory program, to British Columbia with its short but well pretty much bright attempt this year, Saskatchewan program, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Quebec. All of these programs would be open and would be waiting for you to apply. So catch up. You could immigrate faster, attaining those additional 600 points in your Express Entry system, right? It is expected that Saskatchewan would have lower IELTS requirements. Can't say for sure it would happen, but traditionally they open the doors to a limited number of applicants with the lower IELTS. Nova Scotia and New Brunswick were extremely welcoming this year. Manitoba Provincial Nominee is still a classical program for those who would be able to attain an interview or those who have friends, relatives, or community support. Ontario program, well, if your IELTS is sufficient enough, if you're young, if you score close to 400 points, that might be an opportunity for you. Quebec, as a separate program, would have, or at least it's expected that it would have, more or less close requirements to the Express Entry system, but still it's a way to sneak and a way to apply, right? Yukon, Alberta, Newfoundland, Northwest Territories, Prince Edward, employ all those programs. It is an open and ready way for you to immigrate. If you don't know how to approach those programs properly, how to assess your chances, how to prepare your profile and make it attractive for provincial programs, come to us and we would be able to help you. We have an office of trusted and reliable partners and friends in Bangladesh where you could always come and find the needed support. Visa Center. They've been working with us for a pretty much long time and proved themselves to be experienced, skilled, and we're sure that they would be able to help you at any time. Of course, you could also address your questions to us directly, and you could be absolutely assured that we would listen and would try to help at our utmost best. It's our job to assist you selecting the right path, support you on the way, and warn you about possible pitfalls on the road of immigration. Thank you very much for being with me today. On this point, I would like to wish you all a very, very Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. We'll return back soon with our regular webinars and new instructions for immigration programs. Stay tuned with us and on this point. Goodbye.